sit and have a dialogue, have a conversation, and so forth. So this week is going to be no different. I truly appreciate the fact that every single week you viewers take time out to, as some of you say, to set your alarm to 8 p.m. And so I must firstly say that I apologize for the late start. We had a bit of some shifting taking place, but we are up and running. And yes, the Minority Report is airing. We are live on many different platforms. And if you want to know which platforms we are on, you can log on to the Tobago Updates website, first of all. If you are on your computer, your laptop, and so on, you just go to the website and you can see the program. There you can log on to the Tobago Updates YouTube channel, and we are also live on the YouTube channel. You can log on to the Facebook page, which gives you the opportunity as well to interact with us a bit, to be able to type in your questions, make your suggestions, have some comments, even have a little bit of banter amongst persons. I always ask for us to keep it respectful, respect each other's opinions. If you are a subscriber to Amplia, however, you can tune your television, your cable to channel 102, and you can view not just live tonight, but all of the Tobago Updates programming on channel 102 on Amplia. If you're a Flow subscriber, however, you can tune your cable TV to channels 121 or channel 130. That is, if you are a Flow subscriber, channel 121 or channel 130. If you are willing to share with us this evening some more comments, some videos, some pictures, you may think that there's something in your community that you've observed and you want us to be able to ventilate it here for the necessary authorities to be held accountable, you can send us a WhatsApp message on 284-6597. That is 284-6597. You can send it anonymously. You don't have to put your name. Just put what is the information, and we will, in fact, investigate and bring it to bear in terms of ventilation. We want to go right into this evening's program as we have a little bit of a late start. And before I do so, let me introduce my guests in studio with me this evening, who will be an active part of the discussion. Minority Councillor, Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit, all in her red. Good
night, Marlon. Good night to the Minority Leader. Good night, Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, wherever you are locked on to the Minority Report. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Remember to share the live, share the live, share the live.
And we have Minority Leader, Assemblyman Kelvin Morris, fresh off of community work again this evening. It never stops. Welcome this evening.
Always a pleasure to be here to interact with our residents of Tobago, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, all and those in the diaspora. Welcome, welcome, and we are looking forward to an exciting program here tonight on the Minority Report. Welcome, Councillor Benoit.
Thank you.
Guys, we want to jump right into it as we've begun last week. We want to do a quick recap of some of the pressing issues and important issues that we saw over the past week. I want to begin this evening, first of all, and I know Minority Leader, you would have something to say on this, to send out condolences to the family of Mr. John Pollard, who was a renowned cricket coach coming out of Tobago. I think presently, at the time of his passing, he was still the under-17 coach. A great loss to the cricket fraternity, not just in Tobago, but in Trinidad and Tobago, and I think even the region. And many persons would have been impacted. I know you was an avid cricketer, and I know at some point in time you may have also passed through his coaching and stuff. So let me let you just comment on this particular issue.
Well, fun fact, I guess a lot of people wouldn't know, but at my very primary school level days, I did play a decent level of cricket, and my first interaction and memory of Mr. Pollard was when I was selected to be part of a trials for the Tobago under 15 at the time, coming out from the primary school competition, where I did lead WIM to the zonal finals. So that was my first. He was the head coach at that time, of course. Well, I was about the youngest among that under 15 team at the time. And though I didn't make the cut, what stood out to me was just his sheer talent and mentorship. And, you know, is someone from then till now I really looked up to. Outside just how he cared about himself, very professional. He was very inspirational as well. And if you followed his story, he too would have played at a very high level for Trinidad and Tobago, and you know, always would have been exposed to regional cricket as well. So, you know, it is a tremendous loss to the cricketing fraternity here in Tobago and the Trinidad and Tobago, where he served as a head coach as well. And, you know, I want to join with the rest of Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago, and the cricketing fraternity in the West Indies in extending our deepest condolences and sympathy to the family of Mr. John Pollard and the cricketing fraternity here in Tobago as well. Really, really devastating loss.
Indeed, indeed. We really want to identify with the family and the friends, close friends of Mr. Pollard. And we do hope that we're going to see something that is meaningful enough coming out to honor his memory as well. Moving on in the news, and we head right over to the area which seems to be a very in the news area recently, the area of health. We saw a mold infestation at the mental health unit in the Scarborough Hospital. I don't know when we are going to get it right in this particular division. We have seen a number of atrocities. Just yesterday, I passed on the highway and we're seeing this big sign up saying that it's a baby-friendly hospital. Yet still we have a report coming out in the news that nurses have to be transferred from the mental health unit because they are already getting sick. And I'll ask the director to just pull up that particular news item so that we can actually, I mean, what is happening in health? And this is just one of the major news items about health that we still have to go to as we're getting that pulled up as well. We also have the $6+ million CT scanner.
That one is a travesty.
That was recently purchased and installed at the hospital. That machine is now non-functional.
That is scandalous. It is outrageous, and it is a clear demonstration of the and maladministration going on at the level of the Tobago Regional Health Authority and the health sector in Tobago under Faith B. Brebner.
I don't think we should be surprised about anything coming out of this administration and even coming out from the Division of Health. Because if you look at the track record, the track record is clear in terms of bad management, mismanagement in every area. You purchase ambulance, we can't see the ambulance up to now.
And it's like, it appears to me like it's really children. It comes across as if it's a dolly house. You know, long time, you know, as a child, you admire your parents, seniors, managing the home, and then you go and try to pretend.
Yes.
And it seems as though we gave the people of Tobago entrusted governance in the hands of these folks, and they cannot run Tobago. They are demonstrating that, whether you look at the health sector, where it's mismanagement after mismanagement, bad decision after bad decision, waste and corruption after waste and corruption, and you go across all the divisions, and it is just continuous chaos, confusion, incompetence. And when you listen to the people of Tobago, they are resigned. It's like they become so frustrated with the poor governance that they just, in a lot of people, they just throw their hands up. They just throw their hands up. They're completely fed up.
Minority Council even mentioned the issue of the ambulances. I had the privilege today on one of my runs to get some shots, which we'll see later on in the program, to observe one of those ambulances. I think probably is the only one that I saw on the road so far, going up the hill in Pembroke with traffic behind it.
Wow.
The siren is blaring. So, you know, the siren comes on when it's an emergency.
Wow.
And this ambulance is literally creeping, going up the hill. I could have sworn that it was being pushed.
And, you know, by now, this is what baffles me. By now, is either the ambulance can function or they can't function. Because you're seeing still, up to today, I saw the universal ambulance still in rotation, which tells me that notwithstanding they're trying to force the ambulance to work, it appears that perhaps every time they bring them on, they are shutting down. And therefore they have to now supplement that shortfall by having the universal ambulance around. And because Carnival is right around the corner, and they know the ambulance they bought aren't reliable, so we are basically paying twice for ambulance services because of the incompetence of the current board of the TRHA.
The question remains, when will we recognize that the ambulances are not working and ask for a refund?
Well, perhaps
there was a commitment to that. The ambulance are not working.
But if it was so easy to get a refund, you don't think we would have gotten the refund by now? And I understand.
We were promised. That was another promise. The chairman said that if these things are not working, she will not hesitate to seek redress.
But
when will we recognize that they are not working?
Councillor, my grandmother used to always tell me, a promise is a comfort. And these people, if it's anybody, if it's any set of people you would not want to take any promise from, I guarantee you, it is these people. They definitely don't want to, because the reason why I raise this is when you look at, if it was so easy to get back that warranty or have those things returned, they would have, because it's 6 months and it's clear as day that they just care. But you have to understand how warranty works. Your warranty is only guaranteed as per the factory errors. But if you went and do your retrofit, and as they would have done, then you basically forfeit the warranty. And perhaps the question we have to ask is, do they still have that warranty, as we would promise that if anything happens, it can be returned? Because by now, it is clear that most of those ambulances aren't fit for purpose and cannot operate here. So the question is, why have they not returned them as we were promised?
And we're seeing the news item with the mold infestation. This news item identified that for the past 2 years, this has been an issue. So it is just as we were saying, the nurses are now so fed up, they just throw their hands in the air and decide to speak out against it.
And more than the mold infestation, I also understand that something as simple as blood tests, you cannot get blood tests at the Scarborough General Hospital. That is information coming to me, and I'm asking the question to the chairman. I'm asking the question to the Secretary of Health. Is that information correct? And if that information is correct, why are we not rectifying that issue? That people are going to the Scarborough General Hospital for blood works and they cannot get it done.
So what is happening to patients? And that will
This
cause
is a critical
continued
issue.
delay
Yeah.
in access to treatment.
Yes.
Because you present yourself, the first, apart from
Yeah.
the triage, one of the things
Mhm.
that should be common is to get a blood test done
Mhm.
so that you can diagnose or see exactly what is happening with the patient.
And we have the sitting Secretary of Health, who has been in the job for almost 4 years.
Yeah, but
After saying she knew she had all the answers, she is still today quoting and saying that these are things that she has to now look into and investigate.
yeah, but you are right, Marlon. The secretary had all the answers prior to coming into office. We heard all her lies, all her,
All.
and she was just so proficient in the work. So Tobagonians and Tobago gave her the job, gave her administration. She's now the Secretary of Health, and this is another failing secretary and failing division.
And I keep saying that slogan, "Let we fix this," is the greatest con job that has ever been done to the people of Tobago.
Yeah.
Because when you do the analysis, they have fixed little to nothing but themselves.
Yeah.
And as we go along in the program, you will see one of the greatest betrayal of "Let we fix this."
Exactly. So, I mean, we cannot come out of the news segment or the news highlight segment without the news item, Secretary Hackett assigned to culture and antiquities. Mr. Director, you can pull up that one for me. Secretary Hackett, Zorisha Hackett, who is the Secretary of Education, as we know, has been assigned temporarily to the Division of Tourism and Transportation, Culture and Antiquities, with responsibility for, I want to be specific, for culture and antiquities. The Minority Leader, you hosted a press conference as recent as what yesterday was, where this we began to ventilate this particular thing. Brief us a bit as they are pulling up the whole news item there.
I think first and foremost, what this is clearly, this is an indictment on the leadership of the Chief Secretary. One is inability to respect the people of Tobago, his inability to communicate with the people of Tobago, and his inability to make tough decisions. Because what the Chief Secretary by his actions is really saying to us as Tobagonians is, I as Chief Secretary have lost confidence in the ability of the Secretary of Tourism, who I appointed to get the job done. And more than losing confidence in the Secretary of Tourism, Mr. Boris, I also have no confidence in her assistant, Mr. Niall George, who had the responsibility of doing exactly that which he has now assigned to Ms. Zorisha Hackett. You will recall for the last carnival, Mr. George was the one who was making all the public appearances as it relates to that carnival. So it means that one, the Chief Secretary wasn't happy with what would have transpired in the past carnival. Therefore, he has now basically sidelined Mr. George. And more than being unhappy with that, he's also unhappy with where the direction Ms. Boris was taking the carnival, because it is clear to me that their strategy is to try to put on a successful carnival, get people on a high, and then try to take you right into an election. And therefore, Ms. Boris and her relationship with the stakeholders, where the stakeholders they were clearly saying, we weren't happy with Ms. Boris. The Chief Secretary was forced to make a decision, and rather than make a tough decision and fire the Secretary outright, he has taken the cowardly decision to basically bring in somebody in the secretary's house.
And that is cause for chaos and confusion. And we've
Yes.
seen the chaos and confusion playing out. And if the chief secretary would have been upfront with the people in the first instance,
Yeah.
then all that we have seen on display in the public domain would not have been happening. So what
Correct.
the chief secretary did last is what he should have done first.
First.
So, and we need to unpack it for the public,
Yeah.
because we saw a very vague press release coming on the 18th of September,
Yeah.
indicating that Assemblyman Hackett now assumes temporary responsibility for the division of tourism, tourism, culture, antiquities, and transportation. And she assumed those responsibilities on the 15th of September.
Correct.
So the release came after she assumed the responsibility, and it gave no end date
Correct.
as
It
to
was
when
open-ended.
temporary would end. Where is the Secretary of Tourism? Everybody asking, is the secretary ill? Is the secretary on vacation? Is the secretary fired? What is happening? Until we saw a Facebook post from the secretary indicating that she needed some time off, and she needed time for peace and to hear God's voice. Then we moved to the house on the 25th. The 25th, Thursday, 25th, there were a lot of questions to the Secretary of Tourism to answer. Assemblyman Duke, in his posing of the question, asked if she is still the Secretary of the division. She stood and she indicated that as far as she's aware, she is still a councillor and she still is the Secretary of Tourism, Culture, Antiquities, and Transportation. On Friday, we saw a press conference hosted, and we heard the moderator referring to Assemblyman Hackett as the secretary with responsibility for culture and antiquities. Of course, after this public advisory by Councillor Morris in the House on Tuesday, to see this Friday morning, the public is wondering what is happening at the division.
Correct.
Is it that we have two secretaries in the division and an assistant secretary? Because the assistant secretary should also have, also has responsibility for culture and antiquities. And as the minority leader indicated, what the chief secretary is indeed doing is saying that he has no confidence.
Correct.
So he has withdrawn who is the secretary responsibility for the division, which secretary has general direction and control over the division of tourism, culture, antiquities, and transportation. And is there a division by that name currently?
And that is some very important points, and I'm happy you took the time to walk us through the series of events, because you will recall, coming out from Ms. Hackett's appearance on Friday, that is what sparked even more confusion, because even the media was confused and was referring to her as a temporary secretary of the division of tourism, culture, antiquities, and transport. Even the person who, the moderator for the it was kind of fluctuating through positions, and therefore you could imagine if we on the outside are confused, what about the administrator who have to deal with all of this? Because you recognize as well, in governance, it is not as simple as these are the units of antiquities and culture. These are the units of division of transport and tourism. What about boards and how they have to interact with the various secretaries? Think about festivals, because there's a tourism element, there's a culture element. Think about TITA. Think about all these committees. Think about all the gray areas of renewal of contracts. You have an advisor there. that is a technical advisor. So who are you technical advisor for? Which one of the secretaries are you advising now? You know, so it is a lot to unpack, and that is why, whereas Section 34(1) gives the Chief Secretary the broad power to appoint and disappoint in terms of functions of the Assembly, 37(1) is quite clear as to signal that there should be one secretary at a time, because it speaks about a secretary shall have general direction and control over that division to which they are assigned. Because it is expected that as you identify secretaries and you identify them to a division, you also now need the accountability principles to kick in, the transparency principles to kick in, and the good governance. And a chief secretary who believes in good governance will never make such a decision as to create so much confusion. And this is the genesis of it. It's not about law, but it's about principle of good governance. And this is why we are having this confusion, because if you look at the conduct of this chief secretary, he has absolutely no care or concern for good governance. It has been in the way they procure stuff. It has been in the way they treat with workers and their contracts. It has been in the way that he keeps his word. He doesn't keep it. He has absolutely no respect for good governance, transparency, and accountability.
And again, with that in mind, we have to also bring the comments of the Chief Secretary into view. Because the Chief Secretary, instead of bringing clarity to the situation, I think the Chief Secretary caused more confusion and muddy the entire thing. Because if the Chief Secretary indicated in his press conference yesterday that he would have written,
he specified that.
The secretary is indicating, Secretary Hackett, you are responsible for culture and activities, and Secretary Boris, you are responsible for tourism and transport. When did he write? And how then did days before the Secretary of Tourism said, as far as she's aware, she's still the Secretary of the division?
And if you unpack the Chief Secretary's narration of events, where he indicated the Secretary approached him for some time off, he approved the time off. Yet the Sunday, he's saying the Secretary showed up, even after he gave her time off to the events down at the jetty. And we are saying, if by that time you were clear that you were going to make a temporary appointment, which you announced quite the Thursday, then why wasn't that secretary present at that time? Notwithstanding that, when you look at the date of the release, you said the secretary asked for a week, which meant she was going to return on Monday. Yet the press release came, I think, either the Wednesday or the Thursday. And you would ask yourself, if after you didn't tell us on the Monday that one secretary you have approved time off for the Secretary of Tourism, and therefore the Secretary of Education will now temporarily hold that position for the week. You didn't tell us that on Monday, but Thursday or Wednesday, couple days when the secretary should be returning, all of a sudden you get a bright that this secretary, we will now notify with limited information. And on top of that, you knew that she was going to return on Monday. So why in the press release didn't you indicate the date of her return? As is customary. And then, on top of that, we then went into silence. So we didn't know whether the secretary had returned. What was the situation?
If they working, what?
It was only on Thursday when Mr. Duke, in his miserable way, would have poked the secretary for a response to which he eventually gave. Notwithstanding the presiding officer attempted to protect the secretary from responding, which was, I found as a member, it was a relevant question, because up to that time, no one was told that the secretary had resumed. But even more important, in that session, the presiding officer allowed something quite interesting to happen, because the chief secretary is saying he wrote. So is it that he wrote to the presiding officer too? Because the presiding officer ought to be so notified, because the questions that were filed in the secretary's name are no longer relevant to her portfolio, because she has been stripped of culture, she has been stripped of antiquities, and therefore she has absolutely no right responding to questions that is dealing with those portfolios, because you no longer have those functions. And especially the secretary who now have those functions, she is present. And therefore I have seen the secretary who has been fired from antiquities and culture, because those responsibilities have been removed, whether temporary or permanent, because we don't know, because the chief secretary says he reserves the right to basically return those functions, even after we are told by the chief secretary that she's no longer the secretary with those responsibilities. She's responding to questions about the Tobago Carnival. She's responding to questions in writing about the jazz festival thing that they had. And I am going to respond to the PO and said, these responses are null and void, because this member no longer has the responsibility for those functions. And that would be my simple response. And I want to hear from the member who now have the responsibility.
And minority leader and minority
and therefore, one more thing, they also hoodwinked us, because that secretary rose up, and this is why we are going to take her to the privileges committee, because if we are to believe the chief secretary, as he said, he wrote her, informing her that she is no longer responsible for these functions. She then got up and answered questions, and not just that, she rose on a standing order as to prevent herself and the other secretary from responding to the questions of the day, by indicating that all these questions are in my name, all these questions are relevant to me, and therefore I can only deal with 3 questions per sitting. And if she had known that she's no longer the secretary with responsibility for the questions that fall under culture and antiquity, she had no right claiming those questions.
And minority leader, even after the chief secretary made his announcement and specified who was tourism and transportation, who is culture and antiquities, we have the secretary who is temporary responsible for culture and antiquities, announcing that she's speaking to the Minister of Transport and Caribbean Airlines.
But we also have to note that the secretary said it was on the instruction, the beckoning of the chief secretary, that she reached out to the secretary of the Minister of Transport, the Minister of Public Utilities, leader of government business, as well as the Minister of Finance, in relation to an increase in flights. So is it that the secretary is really responsible for
the secretary?
And that is the blurring of the lines that happens when you do things of that nature.
And that is why I say anyone who understands this move will understand that this is counter to the principles of good governance. Because if a decision is taken at this time, who do you really hold accountable?
Exactly.
And in terms of the administrator, if there are situations that require sign off, and one is saying sign for we're not going here, and the other is saying yes, we're going. Because if you have the Secretary of Tourism talking to the Minister of Transport, and you have the Secretary of
Transportation,
Culture, because they're now dissecting a reset, they've split the division, right? So you have a Secretary of Tourism and Transport, and you have a Secretary, and he actually put it up that there's one with responsibility for transport and tourism, and one. But if both of them is talking to the minister, let's say Carl decides that we will put on more flights, but we want you all to subsidize some level of the flight. Who is making that decision? Is it the secretary who called Mr. Zaku? or is it the one who was placed on the sideline? Yeah. So I know we might be right, but this is a serious
matter.
And this conflation and confliction is caused by a chief secretary that has lost handle of his executive
total incompetence
but
at that level.
That, what is ironic is that a secretary who also does not have control over her division, because if you talk to principals, you talk to tutor, you see what is happening on the island in terms of school reopening. You put a secretary who is not in control of a division, not on top of what is happening in the division, to assist another secretary.
And on top of that, the chief secretary seems not to even understand the magnitude of the work that has to be done in the division of education. Because the chief secretary seems to believe that the only function of the secretary of education is to oversee school repairs, which is not even being done in-house. Because they have outsourced school repairs. There's a division. The division is the Division of Education, Research and Technology. After 4 years, there is no research element in that division. She has not operationalized the research unit of that division. After 4 years, there has been no technological advancement within that the whole THA, which her division should be really championing. So you have, after 4 years, where is the Tobago-centric curriculum that was promised and paid for as well? After 4 years, what is happening to our contracted teachers? They were once contracted teachers. They were part of action. In fact, the three main players in that process are in the executive at this time. Mr. Orlando Kerr, he was a tutor rep that championed that cause for our educators. Not a word about regularizing our educators at this time. The chief secretary and Miss Hackett was part of that action. They benefited from a court action with respect to getting paid their gratuity, etc. And after going through that, you would think they would be the best ones to advocate and champion and ensure a resolution is brought. And that secretary has failed to address that. So while you have a secretary falling down on the job, and I would say in big, that secretary, I know I'm saying it in big, is one that is hardly ever seen on the job.
Yes, you hear that.
Correct.
You made a
always absent
in relation to teachers. Secondary schools in particular are complaining about the lack of teachers.
Correct.
And the number of vacancies that exist and how they need to double up to ensure that classes are supervised. Right now, I know of one secondary school who not offering some basic subjects.
Level.
Geography and maths, because there are no teachers for those subjects. And this is the secretary. We also have a situation where we know, coming out of the reopening of school, again, I know of a school who parents and students have to purchase paint, volunteer their services to paint classrooms to ensure that their students are in a learning environment that is conducive. And this is the secretary that is going to be shifted
with additional responsibility.
So clearly, they are saying to us, Carnival is more important than the education of our children. So burnout education, no priority for education. We want to make sure we fit people so that they will come out and vote for us. So, and on top of that, I want to really, pay homage. I want to thank our devoted, hardworking teachers, because while we believe all is well in the schools. It is just for the
Love.
real love
Yeah.
and devotion of the teachers why the education system in Tobago has not fallen
Crumbled.
down and crumbled. The kind of conditions teachers are bearing
Operating
and
under.
operating under just to ensure that our children receive some form of learning and they limit learning loss is really commendable.
Yes.
And so to pretend that all is well and because and make the secretary out to be some super secretary
Super.
when she is a failing secretary in her own division is almost laughable. And it is almost unfortunate as well, because ultimately the people who are holding up that school system, because the education system still remains with a lot of problems, but in the terms of the school, it is our principals and our teachers and the hard-working
staff,
ancillary staff
and so on,
and the parents.
Yeah.
Because I am a parent as well, and I am in groups where teachers are asking for volunteers to come and paint, to come and this, and I'm saying to myself, but what is the role of the Division of Education? And we didn't just have school repair program.
But how many
millions
schools,
spent.
How many schools again? How many schools substantive work was done at? Because a week before school,
and when did it start?
Yes, a week before school, you're hearing complaints from principals
nothing
that
done
nothing
yet.
has started yet at the school,
and
you have 2 months. We know every year that July, August is the vacation period, and that is when we would do school repair. So there's sufficient time to plan. So it doesn't creep up on us, and it's not an emergency.
And the point is, again, in terms of, I hear stories of up to the night.
Working overnight, 2 o'clock in the morning.
Some people basically turn night into day to get the schools in a good enough position. But to say that you did something so good or commendable that you should be rewarded. I am being told that in some instances they even had to rent chairs for the students to sit, just not to allow the embarrassment of the day where students would have come to empty classrooms. That is as bad as it was.
This is crazy.
So you're quite right, Councillor, that it is quite interesting that in a situation where you have a secretary that could barely manage the workload that she has, you have
you know how bad you have to be performing.
So in a
place here with a non-performer. You know how badly you want to be performing.
Not a joking matter. It is very serious.
And you know,
no, but
now talking about serious.
Laughable. It is laughable what we have come to as an island and what administration is in the Tobago.
And you know, they like to talk about 4 years compared to 21, etc. And when you look back at the way how Tobago was managed in a serious way, never before you would have seen this kind of confusion.
Never.
We had the privilege, and it's only today it dawned on me. I said, when last have we gotten the dignity of a post-executive council press briefing?
You forget that happens.
That was something that was almost a ritual where, in terms of accountability, every Wednesday, a secretary or perhaps 2, maybe 3, and in some instances, the chief secretary himself would present himself to the media, not behind some digital arrangement, but face to face, and share what was deliberated and agreed upon, what major decisions were taken on behalf of the people of Tobago, and then open up themselves to questions on matters related to and not related to, but important to the people of Tobago. When last have we gotten the dignity of such an arrangement under this current bunch?
Yeah.
And that is what accountability look like. And those are the things that we took for granted. And I'm asking Tobagonians that if it were the PNM who was conducting the affairs of Tobago in that manner, if you would have been so tolerating, because the People's National Movement make governance look easy, as Mr. Manning said, and oftentimes we are held to a different standard.
Yeah.
And Tobagonians, if it were the PNM, would you have been so
Definitely not tolerant.
tolerant of what is happening? We are too silent.
Because look, for example, and we talk about accountability and the lack thereof, something as fundamental as an FOI, a Freedom of Information request, that is a legal arrangement that requires any public authority receiving such a request to respond within 30 days. And I can tell you, Tobagonians, we have sent on record over about 50. And this administration has failed to respond to less than 50% of those requests. Imagine something as simple where we are asking divisions, simply tell us how much money have been expended by each secretary on overseas travel for them and their immediate staff. That is their personal staff. And you would think that something as simple as that would allow the administration to respond, especially if you have no cocoa in the sun. And to date, out of how much? 8 or 9 divisions, including the office of the chief secretary, we have received a response from only 2.
Yep.
And one of them telling us what? One of them telling us some nonsense story.
That's a wait. And
so imagine writing a love letter to tell us that we have to wait to get the information when all you have to do is compile information.
Correct.
This is not difficult information to compile. There's a vote book that has the record of all the persons.
That could be done in a day.
It takes little to no time, but yet we are waiting months after for something as simple as that. And the reason they don't want to respond, I have the information, I've done the calculation. They have spent over $25 million traveling first class, eating ham, lamb, and jam, drinking champagne, eating with knife and fork while you catching your royal nenen.
And they promised accountability.
And these are the same people who promise accountability. They chain you up. I remember their campaign. They made it sound like the former administration was living lavishly. This remind me of Animal Farm.
Correct.
Yeah. I remember when the chief secretary, what about the contract? Remember there was a
the contract with the JP.
And
the people's contract.
This administration and the different assemblymen.
Well, remember
that was before.
But remember they divorced themselves.
Yes.
It's like, this is like money heist. No, this administration, this TPP administration is no different to a money heist, because they came in one vehicle and as soon as they got in the treasure chest, they abandoned. You know, when people and they're going to, how they just do it, they come with one vehicle, and when they do it to keep up, they change the vehicle. But Tobagonians, whether they change vehicle, is the same players, and therefore we must remember and we must deal with them at the opportune time.
So I want to, in the final news item, just to touch on briefly, is that Tobago residents call for better right now, apparently, on the island. And it is only after it was raised yesterday in the press conference calling on the authorities to come out and talk to the people and say what is taking place. That I got word, information came that tomorrow there is going to be some sort of briefing where WASA is going to be talking and telling people what is happening. It seems only when the minority speaks out on the issue and makes it public on social media and other platforms that members of this administration jump into action. And Tobago residents are calling. I know because even where I live, we're experiencing serious water challenges.
Well, I want to address this unpatriotic Secretary of Finance, who all of a sudden, because she now starts to get a little pay, and the pay is sweet, she believe that every time I speak to people of Tobago, that is somehow going to damage her pay. And she believes she represents Tobago, because imagine we have a water crisis on the island. I, as an elected member, first as a representative, where I have residents calling me on a daily basis, complaining, indicating that they can't get water. And this councillor who nobody voted for is coming to tell me that I trying to mash up Tobago and make Tobago, well, destroy Tobago. When I am here, I am the one speaking on behalf of the average Tobagonian, and some of them don't even have the luxury of tanks to store water, and therefore depend on a reliable supply of water to be able to prepare themselves to go to work, their children to eat, to drink, to bathe, and all of that. And because she's enjoying the luxuries of high office, she is coming to attack me and say that I am trying to destroy Tobago when I'm speaking for you, Tobagonians. And I reject her unpatriotic attempts to destroy me personally when the issue is about water. Water is life. And when you take that to the point of trying to bring that to some kind of head, where I am making the point that the situation was so bad, if I wanted to destroy, I was clear not to even mention the hotel as to preserve the integrity of the hotel, but simply to make the point and to raise alarm that we have a carnival coming where people will be coming to our island, and the last thing you want is while they are here, they can't even get water to do the basic functions of life. And therefore, if anything would destroy the island, would be a situation like that. And it is in that regard, I found it very important to raise this issue and sound the alarm. And we are now seeing everybody scrambling to get their house in order so that we can treat with this urgent matter of a reliable source. But these people are so high on office, and all they see is office, to the point where recently they have not told you that Tobago, nowhere on the Chief Secretary's page, you have seen him reported that he, as Chief Secretary, out of all the motions he could bring at this time, was to put together a motion hiding behind some former assemblymen, most of whom are their supporters, trying to create a window to, one, pay them $1 million in one-off pension benefits. And on top of paying them millions in one-off benefits, they also found a way to squeeze their own future pension into the arrangement by ensuring they would become pensionable. So whether you vote them out or in, they will be entitled to a pension for life after one term. And we all know the bacchanal that is happening in their party at this time. And if you look at some of the arrangement, especially the ones that are older, they are on the chopping block because the Chief Secretary is looking to freshen up his team after they have failed miserably. And because he has to move out people, and one of the main points that they brought out in the argument is that they are concerned about their pensions and becoming pensionable. And that is why a lot of them always ask for a second term, because under the current pension arrangement, you must contribute for at least 6 years, or the equivalent of that means you have to get at least a minimum of 2 terms before you can be entitled to any pension benefit. And because they want to take away that argument from those who they intend to chop, so that when they say, how come you're not sending me back and I had to get my pension, they'll say, well, you're already, we have covered that. You are pensionable now. And they, or even, is the first time I've seen them agree with Mr. Duke in a very long time.
Exactly.
Mr. Duke has been persona non grata for those people that have described him in the worst ways in that house.
Except
Thursday when Mr. Duke recommended that the pension become from one, we start the pension after 1 term or 4 years, that they reduce the age qualification to start from 55 to 45, and finally that they move it from contributory to a non-contributory arrangement where you, the taxpayers, now will have to pay the pension. And here how much they are now recommending the pension to move. At the highest level, the pension has 2 tiers. If you serve between 2 terms, which is 6 to 10 years, you are entitled to 40% of your highest salary earned. And if you serve beyond 3 terms or 10 years, beyond 10 years to anything after that, you are entitled to 55% of your highest salary earned. Mr. Duke, with the congruence, with the agreement of the others, they are now recommending that you become pensionable after 1 term. So a politician now gets a sweetheart deal where they become pensionable after just 1 term. So you have no obligation to perform. You could come. Once you get elected, you could sit down for the next 4 years. And thereafter, you earn a pension for life that they are now saying should be 66% of your highest salary earned. So if you look at what a secretary is earning right now, which is about $38,000, they will receive about $20,000 for life. And that is what these wicked, vindictive jokers, out of all emotions, out of all the things to do in Tobago, they decided 2 months before the house naturally dissolves, they would come and secure their bag.
Secure the bag.
And they said it.
Yeah.
They said
I want to run those 2 clips actually. Mr. Director, could you pull up the 2 clips? One with the temporary
the Chief
secretary.
Secretary reiterated the fact that between that time of the motion being published to today, even this morning after 2, before I came here, other members, former members, wives and children of former members was speaking to the fact that we should have been inclusive in our approach to even take care of ourselves. And it's only on this floor this morning, today, the amendments were made.
Madam Presiding Officer, imagine the legislation being adjusted in Trinidad, yet no one thought to raise the matter to consider the members of this House. Today, under the leadership of our Honorable Chief Secretary, Farley Chavez Augustine, we are making that call for fairness, care, compassion, and justice.
And the Chief Secretary reiterated the fact that between that time of the motion being published to today, even this morning after 2, before I came here, other members, former members, wives and children of former members was speaking to the fact that we should have been inclusive in our approach to even take care of ourselves. And it's only on this floor this morning, today, the amendments were made. So
it's clear.
There you have it. The secretary admitted that the motion is about them taking care of themselves. So Tobago, while they told you all previously to get into office, is about fixing you. As
that is the true intention.
And your bread and butter is you.
That is the true intention now.
And you know what is even sad? Because you hear WASP talking about fairness, compassion, justice. this administration fired over 1,000 Tobagonians,
Employees.
either directly or by way of
Indirectly.
not renewing contracts, sending them home. These are people who are accustomed, some of them working in the THA for over 10 years, more
20
than the
years.
4 years that they are now trying to.
Yes.
And even when some of these workers decided to take action against the Tobago House of Assembly and this administration for their vindictive and unjust dismissal, and even when those actions were found favor with the industrial court, and judgments have been given, including one that expired today for payment, this wicked, heartless, uncaring,
Evil,
selfish, evil, self-serving, and disingenuous, dangerous administration decides to ignore. They are in contempt of court at this time, breaking the law, ignoring a judgment, not paying these workers who have been home for 3 years. Some of them never worked a day since you sent them home. But you have the leader of assembly business coming to cry crocodile tears, false tears,
see about the
fakery in the bakery, theatrics. Where was the tears for those people that you sent home? Many of them, I've seen them on Facebook saying how many nights they have actually cried, real tears, because they cannot feed their family, they can't pay their rent, they can't pay bills. They have, some of them have had thoughts.
Yeah, it is that grave.
It is that grave. And even when the court ruled, you refuse to pay those people, but yet you have come with a bill, with a motion, where now you have the authority, because they say they have the majority. So they now, as what they have done is give themselves as the executive council. So the next move, what will happen in the dead of the night, is that they will go and prepare a note that will give millions to former members of the assembly, most of whom support them, who would have already received at minimum a gratuity. So it was not that these members weren't in some way compensated. Here it is, you have people who they failed to compensate, terminated without compensation. The court said you were unjust and you ought to have compensated these people. I am declaring this is the amount of compensation, and you are refusing to pay.
Well, what was even more interesting, and a point to note in the debate, is that there was no real information coming to the fore in terms of how many persons are expected to benefit.
What is the financial cost?
And what is it going to cost is going to be the benefit? Is it going to be a pension? Is it going to be an ex gratia payment? Is it going to be a one-time payment? So there was no real information or thought going through as to what are we really going to do. So they indicated that they wanted to take this back from 1980. How many persons from 1980?
And how are you dealing with that now? Who is going to be? Who is the beneficiary?
So in our view, it was not thoroughly thought out through the end as to what exactly will happen and what it will cost the taxpayer.
And why the rush? Because usually something like this, and what is important for Tobagonians to understand, because this is one of the questions I asked them. You had year one, there was no conversation about this. If this was something that was on your mind and pressing, you had year one, you didn't say a word. Year two, you didn't say a word. Year three, you didn't say a word. We have something called the House Committee. We treat with all issues affecting members. We spoke about looking at increasing the allocation for members and their district offices. We looked at a number of things. And no way in that conversation did the issue of remuneration for past assemblymen, no way or no day that was raised. And even in this period, all that was required was a convening of that committee. We study the matter in its totality. You call actuarial people, you
Do
call
a
other
review,
stakeholders, you
yes.
call trade unions to
Proper
see
process.
how and get a proper report.
Mm.
Bring that report to the House, and therefore we can, in a real way, look at all the ramifications, financial, legal, what could happen. But
Correct.
that was not done. All they came for is to say this was noted, so they can now use their executive authority to go and do what they want,
Yep.
and to secure themselves.
And again, this was another bad process. So we started off
Every
having this
process,
motion, and then the minority leader got a call that the motion may be removed.
Yes.
And we were having discussions about the motion, and then we kind of suspended the discussion, and the minority leader is like, you don't need to prepare anymore. And I'm like,
Yeah,
you know them. You know them.
That you can't take the word, you can't take their word. And lo and behold, when we asked the next day, will there be a meeting? No, there's no meeting. They want to amend the motion. There was one word of an amendment, and then came on the floor of the House on the day, we saw a
whole new motion.
Whole new motion.
And these people are so dangerous, and you have to be so careful with them. Because in the House, I was making the point that the member who moved the motion, the leader of Assembly Business, spoke about how she consulted with former assemblymen, she consulted with Mr. Duke, etc. And I made the observation, but you made all this consultation, and if this is a motion where we're buying from everybody, you would think that you would also consult with the minority. And that young lady got up and attempted to create the impression as though she consulted with me, when all that young lady did was message me to indicate, recognizing that they were going to expand after they did their negotiations. She realized that perhaps they were leaving out some of their people, and therefore she wanted to amend the word assemblyman to assembly members, so that it will include everybody, including people like presiding officers and councillors. And therefore that was as far as the conversation. That member and I had nothing to do with the substance of the motion. And thereafter, as minority councillor just explained, we got a call from the clerk's office indicating that there's some discrepancy with the motion, and this motion might be pulled, another one might come, and we may not debate it one time, like, because I said we can't add a new motion because we have already passed the time. And how are we as the minority to respond to something that we have not seen? I was told a meeting would then come 4 p.m. on the Monday. That meeting never happened. So in talking, I said, councillor, but they didn't say anything to us yet. And that was Tuesday. Wednesday being a holiday, I said, let me call the clerk and see what's happening. Only to recognize they decided that they will go forward with the motion and make amendments on the floor. So said, so done. But yet this young lady was trying, and the trolls, TPP trolls, on their social media, putting it around as if I misrepresented something. We had no consultation except for you simply informing me that you were making a very minor adjustment to the motion. But if you were interested in us having a bipartisan position on this motion, you would have had a discussion as was afforded to former assemblymen and Mr. Duke, and you did not. And that was the point I was making, plain and simple.
So the essence of this, as we begin to wrap, the essence of this is simply that a motion was brought to the House, rushed, so that they could simply secure themselves in the event that some of them are changed out or
No, well,
they don't get re-elected.
you're correct.
On the cuff of the elections.
Because it is really to treat with their internal issues.
Yes.
It's no different to what we heard on the voice recording where they were plotting and planning to use state resources to treat with their propaganda
That's
strategy.
how they began office.
And just as how they began is how they ended. Only that they came in plain sight and said what they were going to do. I saw a secretary, even just the same leader of assembly business, in wrapping up saying this is not self-serving. What this means is that after one term, I could just leave and give somebody else a chance. So I'm not being selfish. I'm actually being gracious.
Yeah.
And therein lies the whole issue. It's about them treating with how they want to appease those to who they want to remove by letting them know your business fixed. You getting a pension, which is a handsome pension that you would get for the rest of your life on top of the gratuity that you will receive.
These people have reduced.
So these are the same people who are the world to say about the SRC report. At least with the SRC report, that was prepared by an independent source.
Yeah.
In this arrangement, it is himself unto himself. And that is the danger of it, because up to now, we don't even know what they're paying. We don't even know the magnitude as to what they are planning to pay and to shake. Is a shake and they're looking for a parting shake. And we are hearing for the pension, 66% of highest earned. So imagine if you, as a chief secretary, earn $44,000 or $50,000, you are now going to get 66% of that, which is about $30,000 for life. So that is what this is about, and it is a dangerous, self-serving arrangement.
Very, very, very
dangerous. The reason why I'm standing up against this is because while they are trying to secure themselves, you have to be Ghanaians struggling. People who actually providing service can't even get paid. People who have gratuity entitlements, they have not seen a gratuity under this administration.
The man on the ground is
man on the ground is feeling it. The businessman, everybody feeling it. But yet all there who saying they don't have no money trying to secure themselves in a most scandalous arrangement.
We will continue to ventilate this issue until all Tobagonians understand.
This issue is a big issue. It is a dangerous issue.
This is a hoodwink. And as he rightfully said, it's a money heist.
It's a money heist.
In the dead of the night and in the broad of the daylight.
And in their dying moments, as an administration, they are trying to run away with the bag.
Let us not be fooled. Let us not fall prey to the old saying, give them wine, give them games, and they would love us. Folks,
open your eyes.
Definitely.
See what is before you.
We are officially out of time. Always so much more to ventilate than the time permits. But folks, we thank you for staying with us. We thank you for being a part of the conversation. I know for a fact that many of you are enlightened based on the messages that you normally send. We thank you for the support. And we are back next week, Tuesday, to continue these discussions to unveil the mismanagement, the wanton disregard and disrespect meeting out to Tobagonians. So folks, we want to say have a wonderful evening. I'm Marilyn David, your host for the Minority Report, saying stay tuned. Next week, Tuesday, we are back. Stay safe and God bless. Have a wonderful evening.
This is why when they're in office, they spend so much money protecting them, feeding them, giving them gym. Look at how far looking in Pink Health. Pink Health. When he was on this side, he was like a figure one. I used to hug him up with one hand twice. Once to hug him, twice to hug him up. Spin him up. Best of health. best. Watch them.
So nice to see you all. Meet you recently. I don't mean how we are here. And how we eat that chance to win.
No race has the last word on culture and civilization. They do not know what we are capable of. They do not know what we are thinking. Because my work has only just begun.
Feel it down in your soul. Put your hand up to the sky. Mama, don't ask why. In these dark and lonely times,